the system, the school district, for vaccine mandates. And you'll be surprised that they actually still have the mandates of COVID vaccines. So when they sued them, they lost in the lower courts saying that 1905's smallpox case, where Jacobson was a person who sued for refusing the vaccine, and he was asked to take the vaccine. He refused, went to the court fined him for $5, which is $140 or $250 now. He refused to even pay that, and then it became a felony. So that example is used in many progeny cases, the further cases. So a school district used that example to say that a state, and then they refer to themselves saying we, part of state, have a right to mandate the vaccines. And if somebody doesn't take the vaccine, then they are out of job. The court's discussion is amazing. And I thought it will be interesting to actually see here how one of the judges, I believe it was Judge, so there was Hawkins, Cole, we'll see. So one of the judges said, I'm shocked that you still have the mandates. And what is interesting is, let me give you a summary and then we'll hear it. What is interesting for court was that the school district does not mandate vaccines for children. It only mandates the vaccines for teachers or employees. Plus, it does not mandate the vaccines for those who had the vaccine 2 shots early on in 2021, whose efficacy is of course gone now. So the judges were confused, or were kind of curious, that how come you are saying that the vaccine mandates are going to be helpful when there is no transmission prevention? Secondly, the vaccines that were taken 2 years ago, those people actually don't have the vaccine's efficacy anymore. And then the children don't have any vaccines. How are you still holding on with this mandate? And one of the judge called it an arbitrary rule that they have. So it was a very interesting one. So let's listen in. And so before we dive into it's about 20 minutes listening. So this is drbean.com. In the description of this video, there is a link to get drbean.com's access. Our prices have gone from 67 to 97, and I'm going to retire the 97 prices as well in another month or so. So if you wanted to take advantage of it, take advantage now. So that is one. And you would actually see that Dr. Bean has become so beautiful that you would love it. The design is changed and the experience is awesome. Of course, content is great. Getting this content, 900 videos for $97 is crazy. It's like $1. Okay, not $1 per video. Actually, is it 10 cents per video? Anyways, so here, first of all, check this one out. This is the CDPH to end COVID-19 vaccination and masking mandates for healthcare workers. This is March 23 news. So they're saying, in addition to lifting the vaccination mandate, the CDPH will remove masking requirements for high-risk settings effective April 3, 2023. So the mandates were actually lifted officially at that time. Then if you look at CDC, who should get vaccinated, for example, this is smallpox. And why am I talking about smallpox over here? Because smallpox was used as an example, Jacobson case. And the lawyer for the school district at one point said, we still require smallpox vaccination. So we don't require smallpox vaccination. Either she was misinformed, or she misspoke, or she was just lying, whichever I do not know. Only she knows. But she said to the judge at one point that, hey, we still require smallpox vaccination. So that's, you would listen to that. So smallpox is not a required vaccination in the US, except certain settings. For example, somebody working in a lab where they're working with smallpox, or somebody when there is an outbreak, etc. So this is that. Then here is another evidence. I came with receipts today. So this is another evidence of California not requiring smallpox vaccination. So this is the requirement of the vaccination here. Then this is the United States Court of Appeal for the Ninth Circuit. So I was curious. I'm not a lawyer, so I do not know these things. So here I was curious of what is Ninth Circuit. Ninth Circuit. So here it is. Ninth Circuit is this. So Arizona, California, Nevada, Idaho, Montana, Oregon, Washington, Alaska, Guam, Hawaii, and I forgot the name of MP. So this collectively makes the Ninth Circuit. And we are talking about the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. This is Mariana Islands, Northern Mariana Islands. Now, this is the actual court case or hearing, and it is on YouTube. You can actually listen to this. I have the link in the description as well. I'm going to start from 12. The total time is 30 minutes. I'm going to start from 12. So there may be a slightly more increased length when we comment on it. So it seems like, and what do you think, if you agree with me or not? It seems like once a week we should have Paul Bork, he's a lawyer as well, present the legal landscape that is now evolving as a result of pandemic, because these are actually better things for Paul to discuss. Then here is I have some more receipts over here. This is what we discussed yesterday. This is the booster dose approval from CDC, FDA. And over here, they talk about, remember we discussed this yesterday, that the companies Pfizer, Moderna, Novavax, when they were convincing the board or the committee to say we should allow them for a monovalent vaccine booster, they were discounting the previous bivalent vaccine, saying the vaccine efficacy for the severe cases is gone. And interestingly, nobody talks about transmission anymore because they know they're wrong on transmission. The vaccines do not stop the transmission. And this is nothing political. This is science, that if you have vaccine, vaccine does not put a stop in front of your mouth or nose or eyes to say the virus cannot land in the person's mouth, nose, or eyes because the person is vaccinated. That's not going to happen. So the person can get the transmission. Similarly, the person who is vaccinated also transmits. So it used to be, remember, this used to be that CDC, FDA, like things in news media would say all the time that you will not transmit. And now their language has changed, and they changed it to there is a low risk of transmission. So whatever, the point is transmission is not stopped by the vaccines. And even the severe cases or protection from severe, look at this bivalent booster dose. This is CDC document. See, it says over here CDC COVID presentation. So bivalent booster dose, 120 to 170 days after receiving the booster. The efficacy against severe disease, nothing. -27 to 30, which means nothing. So it's not just a transmission. The actual protection from the severe diseases is also kind of not happening. So I brought these again over here just as a reminder. Now with this background and context, over here what you're seeing is in the top panel, you see the three judges, Hawkins, Nelson, and Collins. You would see that Nelson was very curious and he was digging in, and similar for Collins. Down here in this panel, this is the employees lawyer counsel, and then this is Health Freedom Defense Fund who are suing. And then you would see a little later a woman lawyer who will be representing the Los Angeles Unified School District. Now, when I start playing it, please tell me that do you hear it or not, because I've routed the internal voice and we'll see if it works. So please tell me if you can hear it correctly. I'm going to play it.
Case, Judge Reinhardt, and their case after case after case says that bodily integrity.
So this point here, I skipped the initial part. You can listen to that by yourself. But this part over here, I'm going to see if I can increase the volume. Okay, so in this part, the Health Freedom Defense Fund's lawyer is saying that there is a concept of bodily integrity where a person can refuse to have something injected or to take some medicine forcefully. And he's arguing that this case of mandating the vaccine or lose your job is equal to violating somebody's bodily integrity. Although the school district's lawyer said, well, it's not about the bodily integrity, it's just about the job. We didn't say you need to be forced, leave the job if you don't want it. But it seems like judges kind of were also in the direction of, if you mandate that, it seems like that may be the case. So listen to this part of the argument.
Is a central right. It is a central right for people to not have things injected into their bodies. Rochin versus California, Washington versus Harper, Cruzan, all of those make it very clear. And there's no principled reason at all to say that in those cases, the involuntary injection of something into someone's body against their will is somehow different than saying you're going to lose your job unless you get injected by this vaccine. I see I have 3 minutes and I'd like to reserve.
So the closing argument by the lawyer, as you just heard, he's saying that if we tell someone that you got to have the vaccine or you lose your job is very similar to saying to someone that we're going to forcefully inject you with this thing. So that is his point. Then he leaves, and now the lawyer for the school district.
Vaccine mandate that is currently in place be satisfied by just having the initial 2-shot sequence back in 2020?
I'm going to actually go back a little because this part of the argument is very, very important. The first question that they're asking, and I think it is very important, they're saying, you are asking for the mandate. Are you satisfied with people who got the vaccine 2 doses somewhere in 2021? And then you would see that the discussion would evolve towards a direction to say, well, that vaccine dose or doses, those have lost their efficacy and you are okay with that. But you want to have new employees have the new boosters. So it's interesting.
Is it true that the vaccination requirement is still in effect?
Yes, Your Honor.
So the first question is it true that the vaccination requirement is still in effect? And the lawyer says yes. Counsel says yes.
Is there anywhere else in the country where that's still the case?
I don't know, Your Honor.
Now, would the vaccine mandate that is currently in place be satisfied by just having the initial 2-shot sequence back in 2020 or 2021?
Yes.
And with nothing further since then?
No boosters is my understanding.
So there's no booster requirement?
Exactly.
Okay.
May it please the court. I'm Connie Michaels from the Littler Mendelsohn Law Firm, and I represent the superintendent, chief human resource officer, and board members of the Los Angeles Unified School District, which is in fact a public school district. It is the second largest in the country. It's our position that this case is absolutely controlled by Jacobson and the many, many, many cases after it that have dealt with vaccine mandates and COVID-related restrictions. Everyone from Biden versus Missouri.
Let me address the concern I have about this case, which I think is unique among all the cases we have this morning. And that is the breadth of Judge Fisher's decision. Because so far as I'm aware, this is the only decision that holds that under Jacobson, it doesn't matter if the vaccine does not prevent transmission of the disease.
So this is a very, very important point that Judge Collins is making. So he's saying that Judge Fisher, who was the lower court judge who had actually denied the case for this employees, saying that the school district had the right, in light of Jacobson's smallpox virus vaccine case in 1905, the school district had the right to mandate the vaccine. So they had just dismissed it, or whatever is the right language, legal language. So the judge now is saying that it seems like that Fisher's decision was too broad because the current COVID vaccines are not preventing any transmission, and they have lost efficacy for those who took it early on. So it is not comparable to Jacobson. Plus, the situation then was different. So listen to the argument.
Because she addressed that concern, and she said plaintiff's reliance on this distinction is misplaced. Jacobson does not require that a vaccine have the specific purpose of preventing disease. And then she just upheld it as essentially as mandatory medical treatment. But that seems not Jacobson, and it does seem to be Glucksberg. And so this rationale and this decision seems to me to be clearly wrong. Tell me why you disagree.
So the judge is saying that the lower court has said that Jacobson vaccine mandate was to treat the disease. And here, COVID vaccines do not treat the disease. So he's saying they are not similar.
I do disagree, Your Honor, for a number of reasons. The cases that have been relied upon by opposing counsel, these bodily integrity cases, deal with situations where the forced medical procedure involved literally injecting people.
Vaccines prevent transmission.
I believe that under the current state of the law, courts have not made that distinction in the sense that it's made a difference.
But that's not Jacobson, because Jacobson rests on the principle of vaccination as a means to prevent the spread of smallpox. The whole rationale, and you go to the concluding part of Justice Harlan's opinion, is this idea that you're going to defy the mandate and infect others. That's the whole scenario of Jacobson. But you're coming here and saying, no, we have a right to condition employment on you conducting your medical treatment the way we like. That's not Jacobson. That's something really different.
So this is such a beautiful thing. What the judge is saying is Jacobson's case was based on the vaccine preventing the spread of the disease, smallpox. He's saying here, the prevention of spread of the disease is not happening. Why are you still coming in and saying we want to mandate the vaccine? And he's saying you're giving the example of Jacobson, but this vaccine doesn't do what that does. So they are not similar. Why are you still pushing it?
Your Honor, similar arguments have been asserted in other cases around the country.
But have they been adopted by any other court?
No, I didn't find any other court that adopted the medical treatment type concern.
Let me ask you this. I mean, you don't need that broad of an interpretation of Jacobson to win the case, correct?
I agree. It's a rational basis. That is all we have to prove. And I'm so sorry, Your
But
Honor.
Jacobson won't apply if your position is to concede that the vaccines don't prevent transmission. I mean, and that was, it's alleged in the complaint, and this was done on the pleadings, that they don't. And there's a fair amount of science at this point that their ability to prevent transmission is of a very limited window and expires. And yet you're willing to accept someone who had a vaccine 2 years ago who clearly has no ability to prevent transmission. And yet today, this doesn't fit Jacobson, and it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense.
Well,
So did you hear this? This is such an important argument. And I believe, so this video is on YouTube. If I say it, maybe YouTube would strike it down. But this judge is making a very important point, and that is, You are saying somebody who got a vaccine in 21 doesn't need to have the vaccine again. You're fine with that. But that vaccine is actually doing nothing for them. So why is that okay while you're asking others to go take vaccines? Secondly, he's saying Jacobson is not something that applies here. I wanted to point out that in Jacobson's case, it was not that the court said, now you are mandated to take the vaccine. Court had said, fine, we side with the state that they can ask you to take the vaccine, but if you don't take it, we will fine you. And the fine was $5. So they didn't say you must take it or you lose your job. They said, here is your fine. And Jacobson, I believe, didn't even pay that fine, and then it became a felony. That's a different thing. But they didn't mandate it, even then.
To be clear, I'm not conceding that vaccines don't help with respect to transmission. And currently today, you do have to have had the vaccines in order to be currently working at LA Unified.
So this is a very important thing. You'll see that this lawyer kind of, in my opinion, makes incorrect medical statements. So here she's saying, I'm not conceding that the vaccines do not help prevent transmission or spread. So she's still at that point when the whole world knows the answer that this is wrong. Judges are saying you're wrong.
But what's the basis? I mean, I guess the question is there any rational basis to say that you had to have the vaccine 3 years ago now to continue working?
Well, first of all,
is that the question we're supposed to answer now?
well, I think the real question that you're answering now is to see if there is a rational relationship, and in order to start that, you have to see the fundamental right.
I mean, what if we're here 20 years from now, and the LA's, still requiring a whole new generation? The LA school district is requiring a whole new generation to get a vaccine. Wouldn't we say, wait, you can't do that? There's no current threat.
Your Honor, there is no fundamental right here simply because you're supposed to allow the state, in this case the district, and give them the discretion to figure that they knew the different sides of.
Can you imagine what she's saying? My mind was blown when she said this. What she's saying is there is no fundamental right of people. The people have given this right to us to decide what is right for them. So it is our discretion, not people's discretion. That's what she's saying.
The debate, and
that's not my question. What happened in 2020 happened in 2020. Here we have a situation where you're still imposing this requirement. And so, I mean, at some point, the rational basis starts to wane. And I mean, even under rational basis, I think we all agree that rational basis applies here. Well, plaintiff doesn't, but even assuming rational basis, at some point it starts to wane. And I guess the question is whether you've come outside of Jacobson by prolonging it, this long.
I don't believe we have, Your Honor.
So did you hear what Judge Nelson said? He said that at this time, the efficacy against spread or all that is gone. So you are still mandating it. Aren't you outside of the cover that could have been provided by Jacobson's court case? And now she's saying, no, I don't think so. So let's see.
Because you have to keep in mind, we're dealing with a school with a very, very large population that is impacted, a huge population in LA County. You have a school.
But you could make that same argument 20 years from now. 5 years from now.
Well, Your Honor, they're still requiring smallpox vaccines.
So she's wrong. They're not requiring smallpox vaccine. That is why I showed you the smallpox vaccine mandate or not. Even in California, we are not requiring smallpox vaccine. It is for those who are working in the labs. Why are they working with smallpox? But anyways, those, or someone who is exposed to it, or if there is an outbreak. So she just said, well, they're still requiring smallpox vaccine.
In the school district, I mean, there's a number of vaccines.
In the school district.
But I do want to make the point that without agreeing and conceding to it, even if it was a medical treatment, I believe that there's a rational basis with respect to that.
Roxburgh suggests that if it's medical treatment, that there is a fundamental right, because it talks about the right recognized in Cruzan and says, given the common law rule that forced medication was a battery and the long legal tradition protecting the decision to refuse unwanted medical treatment, our assumption that it was a fundamental right in Cruzan, our assumption was entirely consistent with this nation's history and constitutional traditions, which is the standard that Dobbs applies for substantive due process. So if you're redefining, that's why I think this is so important. If you're saying it's medical treatment, you're out of Jacobson, and it seems to me you're in the Glucksberg fundamental right, and it's strict scrutiny.
Did you hear this question? What a beautiful comment. What he's saying is that if you put it as a treatment, that everybody should get it, then it's Jacobson's case does not apply as an example or a citation. Instead, another case applies where the treatment, any medical treatment, a person has a fundamental right. So we're talking US, a US citizen or person here has a fundamental right to refuse to take a medical treatment. It is their right. It is their body, it is their decision to not take the treatment. So he's saying, if you are out of bound from Jacobson, then you are into the treatment regime. And if you're there, then the vaccines, if they are treatment, then the person can say, well, I don't want to have them. Why are you punishing them?
First of all, we're not conceding that's medical treatment, but even if we were, for purposes of this argument, because it's a school district, it is important that vaccine, even if it was just something that helped with respect to treatment, the reason it's important is because we want the students to be able to go to school and stay in school. So if this treatment is such that it shortens the time that someone is ill.
Are the students subject to a vaccine mandate?
This is so, she's kind of getting herself in trouble. So she brought in students, and now the judge is saying, are students mandated to have a vaccine?
They're not now.
So most of the people in the building are unvaccinated, but this handful of people have to be vaccinated, and that would pass. Are you claiming that would pass strict scrutiny if we found strict scrutiny were applicable?
I don't believe it's strict scrutiny, Your Honor. Bear in mind that many of these students couldn't get vaccinated. They weren't able to do so because of their age and the vaccines that were available. So we're talking about a point in time where the district made the decision that in order to protect the staff, the students, and the community at large, they were going to follow the guidance of the government and the CDC and the various local state authorities and decide that vaccines were in fact a device to help prevent the spread of this particular disease.
Okay. So the judge said, are children required to be vaccinated? And she said no. And she now continues on to say, we have made this decision to protect children who are not vaccinated and the teachers who they're demanding to be vaccinated. But if you took it in 2021 without any further efficacy, it's okay. And the general public at large. And she's saying that we are listening to CDC, FDA, and the local authorities. This is their rationale. The whole country has lifted the mandates. They're the only ones, or at least I just know them, sitting with the mandate and trying to incorrectly push them.
Okay, that's fine in 2020, but what about today? What's the justification for keeping this going? I mean, we've had every other attorney in here saying there's no way we would require vaccines again today. You couldn't get away with it, and you're up here standing here saying no. This is completely common sense. We could keep doing, under your theory, we could keep this in place for the next 20 years.
Well, first of all, Your Honor, that's nothing that was briefed. I don't believe it's actually before the court. I'm not certainly suggesting that it goes on forever, but we do know, for example, that there are COVID spikes right now. So I can't reveal.
Well, you're certainly undermining the mootness argument for every other case that's been out here.
The problem I have, and that's why I started with the question I did, there's no rational basis for believing that someone who got a two-shot sequence in 2021, in March, say, of 2021, has any protection against transmission now in September of 2023. There's just seems to me to be irrational. Even the CDC does not claim that a shot sequence 2.5 years ago provides immunity against what's circulating today. And so that person is exempted, even though they have absolutely no producer. So this just seems completely arbitrary.
Can you imagine? This is such a beautiful thing you just said, that he's saying, what is your basis for these decisions? People who were vaccinated in 2021, they have no protection anymore from that vaccine, and you're okay with that. And he's saying this is just very arbitrary. To me, it seems like schools control. Somebody is sitting in the school saying, everybody is going to have a vaccine. I said so. And now everybody should have it or lose their job.
Well, Your Honor, again, I don't believe that the issue of today, as opposed to what happened previously, is really the issue that's been briefed before the court.
Your policy today is a vax mandate that is satisfied by a shot 2.5 years ago. That's not rational.
Well, in fact, no one that hasn't been vaccinated, not just with respect to COVID, but with a list of different immunizations, is allowed to come on board. And that's it's a universal rule. It's applied to everyone.
Because the other things like mumps and measles, the vaccines prevent transmission for extended periods of time, and there's a scientific basis for that. They've alleged that the vaccines don't prevent transmission. The CDC concedes that after a period of time, they don't prevent transmission, and yet you're insisting on it still.
Well, Your Honor, we're very concerned about maintaining the health of our staff, and until it's absolutely established that the vaccines have no effect.
And the fact that 99% of, or maybe 99.9% of government bodies aren't requiring mandates anymore isn't enough to establish for you? I mean, I'm honestly shocked by...
The judge is shocked that everybody has lifted the mandates and they have not.
Your argument.
I understand, Your Honor. With respect to what the district's going to do now or what they're considering doing now, there's only so much I can tell you because it's not in record. But with respect to the vaccination requirement, they have felt that until it is established that the vaccine is not of use in any way, that it's important to go ahead and maintain it. And if, in fact, it is a treatment, as has been suggested, or is any ability
well, the
to
district
keep...
is saying that in order to lift the mandate, which is in effect right now, one would have to establish that the vaccine doesn't work at all.
One would have to establish whether there are other means, because...
So judge said, what will it take to lift the mandate? And it looks like this school district actually does not want to lift the mandate. They have put it in the schedule and you've got to go get it. And so the judge said, would someone have to prove that the vaccine doesn't work at all? Then you would lift it? And she actually did not bite that. She said, somebody would have to provide an alternative treatment to lift the mandate. How thoughtless do we have to be to say, I mean, I'm talking within this discussion, this context, that a person is saying, if a thing does not work, would you mandate it? And the other one is responding to say, well, if something else works, only then we'll take this thing that doesn't work out of the question. I can't imagine such positions are being taken.
So the test, when we're dealing out of a rational basis, has to do with how narrow it is. And so here, we would have to see, is the vaccine, in fact, the best tool at any particular time, given the particular ability of the vaccines and the particular variants that exist with respect to COVID.
You point to any other government government body, school board, state, city, fire department, anything that is taking this position. I mean, I didn't understand this going into this case. I'm really floored by this argument.
Well, we certainly have the Indiana University, Norris versus Indiana University case, where they came up with the same decision and decided that there's no fundamental basis to employment. And if you didn't follow the particular rules, and this is decided in July of 2023, that you could go ahead and work somewhere else or go somewhere else.
Sorry, just a bit. My colleague, Judge Collins, has pointed to the statement by Judge Fisher in the opinion that it does not matter how effective the vaccine would be. You know what he's referring to.
I'm so sorry. Could you repeat that?
Okay. The statement apparently in the district court's opinion that the vaccine mandate, still in effect, would be upheld even if the vaccine was ineffective completely.
So the district judge who ruled against the employees said that even if the vaccine was known to be completely ineffective, the mandates would still be upheld. So the judge is saying, how did she arrive at that kind of a decision?
To paraphrase, is it possible, here's my question that I'm getting to, is it possible to affirm the district court and disapprove of that language?
Under the rational basis statement, I don't believe there is. I don't believe Jacobson made the type of distinction between treatment and transmission, and it has not been discussed in the cases since then.
Where did Judge Fisher come up with this? Do you know? Did the school district argue to Judge Fisher that it's irrelevant whether the vaccine works at all?
I don't believe that was briefed, Your Honor.
So the judge is saying that the Judge Fisher from district court, where did she come up with this statement that the mandates will be upheld even if the vaccines were known to be ineffective? And then he's asking the counsel for the school district to say, did you argue on this point that this is how it should be? And she's saying, no, I did not. So it is judge's own opinion.
I don't believe that had come up with us. She was I believe she was strictly following Jacobson and its progeny after that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have rebuttal.
So you can hear the rebuttal later on, but weird thing for me to hear this. I think in this particular case, it was very simple for the school district to get out of this problem by simply saying, yes, the whole country has lifted the mandates, we'll lift it as well. When they have so many inconsistencies, children are not vaccinated and there are no mandates for them. The state and the country is not asking for the mandates. The teachers who are or employees who are vaccinated in 21 are said to be okay, even if they don't have any boosters. Then why to mandate the newer or unvaccinated people and then to say, if you did not do it, you lose your job? So I really loved this discussion. I'm not a lawyer, so for me, these are very interesting discussions. For medicine, I can get bored if somebody is saying things that I already know. So thank you very much for listening in. Please like, subscribe, and share. Tell me, what did you find about it? Is it interesting? Should we request Paul to give us one day of the legal landscape around COVID-19? I think it's very interesting, but again, we'll see if you like it or not. With this, please like, subscribe, and share. In the description of this video, there are links if you want to support this work. There are also links if you want to get access to Dr. Bean at a very inexpensive rate. So thank you. Have a nice weekend. I would see you next week. Bye-bye for now.